Alright folks, time to talk about the bear. I took him to work, showed him off, and people said he wasn't bloody enough. So I fixed that. I can't zoom in too much more because he's big. You can start to see I got some blood going down the side of his face and stuff. I painted his teeth, painted the mouth. The mouth is still a little too light in color, but once that paint cures, I'm going to hit it with a dark wash, and that'll fix that. I think I'm getting the legs, cavities, the chest, and a lot of these wounds to start looking like wounds. I'm not done with the blood effects just yet. I got more of that coming. Simply because I'm going to make some blood dripping down the side of his mouth and a few other things. But we're getting somewhere with Mr. Bear. He's almost ready to sit for 4 or 5 days because they used oil paints and all this. Showed you that in an earlier segment. Again, that's all oil paint. So it's got to sit. Alright, back later. Hello all. Just a real quick update on the polar bear. I've got the base figured out. I'm going to use this piece of wood I got from my local Hobby Lobby. It's supposed to be a wooden dinner plate. I'm going to go ahead and use the parts that came with the polar bear for adding some rocky textures to this. I'm not going to leave them like they are. I'm going to put some gloppy things on them and stuff like that because they're a little too regular to be rocks. I'm going to go ahead and use them, cut them up a bit, get them in place because they're going to add something to the thing, I think. I also have the birds that came with the kit, and I'm painting them up as blackbirds, ravens, whatever you want to call them. They're not going to look completely like ravens because, well, heck, they're seabirds, but they'll look something like it. Have them picking on some guts or something. So, get the idea. Starting to get an idea what this thing's going to look like. So there you go. Haven't figured out what I'm going to do for the switch on the eyes yet. I might hide the switch in one of these rocks, so you just push down on the rock. I might do what I did with my last contest entry and use something called a magnetic reed switch, which allowed me to use a magnet to turn it on and off. That means I don't have to have the switch showing. Like I could put this bird on a rock that has a magnet in it, move the bird up here and the lights come on, move him over here, the eyes go off. So I haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do with that yet. I'll get it figured out by tomorrow evening because I got to get going on this thing. You know, we don't have that much more time left. And any kind of groundwork on a base requires time to dry. Fortunately for me, I live in Texas, and the average temperature outside is close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which means the temperature in my garage is close to 120 Fahrenheit during the day. 120 degrees, everything dries fast. So I've got kind of a drying booth built in there. So I could get the groundwork done in a day. Paper mache, whatever, it will dry within a day in that garage. So there you go, my plan out on the base. You see where I'm headed with it. I like to use this because it does have impressions for the bear's feet, so I can lock the bear down really well. Lock this down to the base. And he's sturdy on the platform. Got to figure out how to lock this down to the base, but that shouldn't be all that difficult. I could just put a couple of screws through this into the wood to hold it in place and then cover that up with something else. So there you go. There's my plans on the base for the polar bear. Hello folks. I'm going to talk about Mr. Bear for a little bit. I've got him attached to part of the display base. He came with a peg to put him on there with, and I glued him to it in addition to this peg right here. You can see wires coming out here so I can get power to his eyes. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do with the switch yet. I got a battery box right here that I covered up with Aves, and that's going to be its final resting spot. Now this is not the display base for Mr. Bear. There's more display base than this. Okay? It's curing a little bit. This is just where I'm at with Mr. Bear. Again, I made a battery box out of Aves. The battery box is going to sit in this position right here. There is some parchment paper between the battery box and the display base. That keeps the Aves from sticking to the display base, because Aves won't stick to parchment paper very well, and that's a barrier. But anyhow, just wanted to give you an update on Mr. Bear. Sorry for the bad lighting today. I don't have the overhead lights on. There's a reason for it. I'm working on Mr. Polar Bear here. I did the wiring for his eyes, and I'm going to explain what I've done, sort of. Okay? Real basic circuit. This little doodad right here. Here, let's move the camera a little bit and zoom that in so you guys can see that, what I'm pointing at, instead of looking at... There we go. Alright, this little doodad right here is called a magnetic reed switch. And when in the presence of a strong magnet, it will cause the circuit to close. And you can see, let me zoom that back out a little bit. You can see it's a pretty basic circuit. I got the positive all wired straight to the polar bear's eyes. The negative goes to the reed switch and right to the polar bear's eyes. If I set this thing upright, you can see the battery box I made. I was trying to make something that looked like a rock. And the batteries are in it, and the battery box sits right there beside Mr. Polar Bear. Okay? And the reason I've got the lights kind of dim, we're going to see if I can get this reed switch to work. I might have to use some tape on it, so let me tape it up, because it's too far away from anything to work right now. A little blue painter's tape, and I want to be careful with this because I don't want to put anything on the reed switch. Reed switch itself is pretty fragile, to be honest with you. These things are not really robust, not like a light switch. Okay, I've got it in place. I'm going to move the camera up so you can see Mr. Polar Bear's eyes. Now, they're still masking and lots of layers of paint on them, so you're not going to see much. Just a little bit of the eyes coming up. Let me get a magnet. And I can see it. Let me kill some more overhead lighting. Yeah, you can see it if you look careful at his eye. You can see that light going on and off as I move that switch around. Here, let's zoom that in. Let you guys get a better look. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. Alright. Take my magnet again. Yeah, you can see the eye lighting up as I move the magnet around. So I'm using magnetic reed switch on Mr. Polar Bear's eyes. Well, there you go. Hope, yeah, there's a nice good shot of that arm. I'm not quite done with the gore and stuff on Mr. Bear, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed this so far. I'll be back later.